Good morning, LinkedIn. Hope everybody's well on this rather cold Friday. I'm Mel Johnson. I am a social media consultant and email marketing consultant. I work with individuals and business owners to help them develop practical social media and email marketing strategies that don't take up all their time and have the confidence to deliver. And I'm here with Mel Barfield this morning. So exciting. Mel, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and our topic, which I forgot to mention.
Thanks. I'm Mel Barfield. I'm a copywriter and copy editor and event speaker, and I help brands and businesses sound less boring, is in a nutshell. And we are talking today about how to use stories from your career to build your personal brand. And the careers part, I used to be a careers advisor, so don't hate me for that though. I know everyone's got a bad careers advisor story. It wasn't me though.
I'm actually fascinated about this because I naively assumed that you didn't need to be qualified to be a careers advisor.
Well, you'd think that you didn't need to be qualified by the amount of people that claim to be in that field. I shouldn't be mean, sorry. It's too early to be that
well,
salty.
Last time I saw a careers advisor was probably over 20 years ago, so maybe you didn't need to be qualified then. Who knows? So I think the first thing we wanted to talk about really is this concept of personal branding, because there was quite a lot of comments, I think, on your post this week about whether we call it character, and actually I'm not a brand. So I think I personally I think that is quite, it feels, I think that can feel really cringy.
Oh, it's massively cringy.
Yeah, instantly go, I'm not a brand.
It's cringy because it makes it sound like a boast or like my personal brand. It just sounds very Instagrammy and glossy, and like someone it's like talking about your personal brand. I think it makes people feel gross because but the fact is you have one whether you like it or not. But it's the same with business-based companies and brands. It's what people think of you, what you bring to what your name brings to mind, what your face brings to mind in their eyes. So it is a very real thing that you have, whether you like it or not.
And I think
so you need to lean into it a little bit, but perhaps find a name.
All it is essentially what people say, what people would say about you when you're not there is probably the best way. And none of us like being talked about, but I think that essentially is what it is. And I think I think the kind of phrasing around it can feel quite daunting. And I think also we're all taught from a very young age not to boast about ourselves.
Yeah.
Not to share like how amazing we are, and and I think it's that thing that can feel quite narcissistic.
It can feel horrid, and and it's that difficulty when you're a business owner or freelancer, where you have to promote yourself, but it feels gross to do that. But we have to kind of get over it, because
we have to get over it.
We want money, and we have lives to pay for. So.
And I think it's really around that for me. It's really around that kind of reframe. But a lot of the time I work with people that I don't want to put myself out there. I feel awful. And it's actually, I think if you can have that reframe of why am I doing this? So to put food on the table to go on holiday, but actually like how am I helping my clients and showing off my passion? That can be a really good way, I think, of kind of overcoming that. And I think once you get into that kind of frame of mind and mindset, and I've seen a lot of people posting since Christmas that they found it really challenging to get back into social media and self-marketing and all those things, because you've had
definitely a muscle. It's a muscle you have to
And I think when you have that break, although I'm a huge advocate of taking a break from social, you build up all those different things in your head, whereas actually if it's something you do quite frequently, and it doesn't have to be daily, it's kind of up to you and what you feel works for your business, and
it gets less icky. Definitely gets less icky, doesn't it?
Yeah,
for sure.
And you kind of lose the fear around putting yourself out there. But also if you're doing videos and showing photos of you, I think you almost become immune to what your voice sounds like.
Do you remember when you were little, like, I don't know if you had one of those cassette recorders where you had to press play and record at the same time. And the very first time you hear your voice back is devastating, because you're like, is that how is that what I sound to everyone else? Is that how I sound? So we've been getting over that for many years now. But yeah, I mean, I always listen back. If I'm on a podcast or something, I always listen back, which makes me sound very narcissistic. But it's partly to remember what I've said in case anyone goes, oh, you said on a podcast, and I have to defend myself, my position. But also just it helps it stop being so gross.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll watch back. I did a talk last night. I'll watch back the recording and hate it and go, ugh, but then also go, oh, at that point, if I do that talk again, which I'm booked in to do more talks this year, I'm like, actually, I'll change that bit because I didn't like how that went. So I'll make sure that I've got a different direction for that bit to go in.
Yeah, and
so actually, it's really important, especially if you don't have a boss, you don't have anyone to give you what's the word I'm looking for? PDR, development reviews and that kind of thing. So you have to do it yourself. And by getting out there and posting and building up a bit of community and networking and that kind of thing, that helps with that side of things as well, of kind of evaluating where you're up to, what you're doing next.
And I think actually watching yourself back or listening or even transcribing the audio is brilliant content for your social media, website, frequently asked questions page, because there is so much in there that you don't even realise. And I think one of the things I really liked, because you came up with this title, so is using your stories from your career to build your personal brand, because we talk a lot about storytelling is talked about a lot.
Oh, so much.
It's just the reality of marketing. And I mean, if you look at big brands like Nike, they don't talk about their shoes. It's all about storytelling. But I think one of the things I find with clients is that, and actually somebody said it, I was working last year, she said, I'm struggling with this because I don't have a hero story. I'm just a normal person.
See, even that wording, this is where do people talk too much about storytelling? Because now there's this whole vocab about it, about how you need your hero story, you need to come across a challenge, then you need a useful guide to come and guide you. There's all this like it needs to go in this order to match the order of how it goes in Star Wars, and there's this almost too much about breaking down the storytelling, whereas the actual bones of it are something happened to me, here's what happened. It's like it's that simple. It doesn't need to be anything grand or massively life-changing, though I have had grand and massively life-changing moments in my life that I sometimes talk about on LinkedIn. It can be something really small. I had a post last week that went way bigger than my post normally do. It was just born of frustration because I got home after a very challenging morning routine to see people kind of going, oh, hustle bro-y stuff about not wanting it enough and making excuses. And I'd been kicked in the kidneys from about 3 o'clock in the morning. And those kind of relatable little micro stories about an insight into your life can be really, I mean, it's not necessarily going to lead directly to a client, but it's building your presence online, building your personality online, and just being actually authentic instead of the fake kind of, I'm so authentic, like pretend authentic that you see sometimes. I think so. It doesn't need to be this massive story that spans a decade of your life or, ends with some amazing achievement. It can just be little micro stories dotted into your content to reveal a bit of your personal side.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's the key, isn't it? Because our entire lives are made up of little stories. Some of them are more interesting than others. And I think, and also to touch on this, I think as soon as we say, and I think one of the other things I hear from people quite a lot is actually as soon as we mention storytelling, they're like, well, I don't want to share pictures of my kids or my dog or talk about the fact that as I've got an ingrown toenail. I haven't got an ingrown toenail,
I don't either, by the way. No, no. But no offense to anyone who does. It's perfectly natural.
But actually, like, and I think this is the real key of kind of the bones of what we're going to talk about right now, is actually you don't have to be, it doesn't need to be super personal.
No, no, it doesn't at all.
And when I was thinking about this topic as well, actually, there's a lot of people on LinkedIn and in other social media who I feel I know really well, but actually, and some of them I do know well because I know them personally or we work together. But actually, when I really think about their content, they share it's really good and they get a lot of engagement. But actually, there's very little personal stuff in there.
Yeah.
But we feel they know them, and I think a lot of that is they're talking about their professional experience and how they help their clients. And I totally had a total disconnect from this until about 15 months ago. My background is I worked in ad sales for more than 10 years. I
don't think I knew that.
Yeah,
I didn't even know that.
know. I need to make more of it. So
you need to make more of that.
And so selling into like really big corporate clients, Unilever, Gatwick Airport, Network Rail, lots of different things. I never talk about that.
That is impressive stuff, Mel. Get it out there.
And actually, somebody said to me, "Well, but so you understand the link between sales and marketing?" And I think actually, like for you, example, as a qualified ex-careers advisor, what we might think about careers advisors, but is you're probably, when your clients come across and work with you, you're really good at asking questions.
Very nosy.
You're really good at matching their previous experience to what's relevant to them now for their website and the clients that they're targeting. And I think that's something that gets overlooked. So I think it's important to actually think, okay, well, I'm totally new because I feel I'm totally new because I'm retrained, I've requalified, or I had a bit of a shift in what I do. But actually, we're all made up of that previous professional experience, and that can be something that's quite easy not easy, but it is a really good way of helping people get to know you by weaving that into your content.
Absolutely. And people don't know unless they tell you, which is a very obvious statement, but it's worth reminding people that people don't know unless you tell them. And it's the same with what you're doing now. And your friend and mine, Jodie Newman, has regularly reminded me to post about what I actually do, because I kind of forget to do that every now and then. But yeah, people are interested in those. It's specifically where you've had a fork in the road, or you've learned something in an old job that you now are using, that's completely unrelated, but is without. I mean, I do crowbar things in on LinkedIn, but I say I'm crowbarring, I'm lubing up the crowbar. But people much more talented than me can craft it in a much less obvious way, to bring those very relevant skills and experiences into their like how they're now good. So one of the things that I sometimes say is I've worked everywhere from prisons to private schools, because when I was a careers advisor, that I would go into young offenders institutions. Those are the most horrible times in my working life, because it's just very sad that they're all in there. One of the young people that I met had to be taught how to brush his teeth at 14 because by one of the staff there, because he'd never been taught. So it's this very sad place to work in many ways, but then very uplifting when you see the changes in the young people there who've perhaps got a routine for the first time in their lives.
Yeah.
Contrasted to going into a private school and being served wine with lunch, and it all being feeling very much my class, and kind of feeling like I'd been given a charity spot at the dinner table. And I think working in all these different places does make me good at, and being trained in how to do properly structured interviews helps me when I'm talking to people, helps me get a rapport with people quite a bit quicker than perhaps I would otherwise.
Yeah.
And so there's everyone who has even if you had a career that has been in the same company, which is very rare. My husband's a unicorn in that he's been in the same company for like, I don't know how many years, somewhere between 15 and 20. I don't keep track. But even somebody like that will have had experiences along the way, even in the same company doing similar roles, progressing through, will have had moments in their career that are interesting and can be exploited, for want of a better word, for content. But I do think it's especially important when somebody switched careers, like I have, to show that all those years weren't actually wasted. And it's kind of nice for yourself as well to go, yeah, I kind of wish I'd gone straight into a copywriting role, or I wish I'd known about it, even though it did come up on my QDOS quiz when I was at school, when I was like 14 or something. I just kind of didn't really investigate what it was.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm better at it now than I would have been through having done different jobs. If I'd gone straight into it from uni, maybe I wouldn't have had the different life experiences that I now bring. So it's about identifying where you've gained those skills and experience, and then just talking about it. It doesn't need to be talking about your difficult birth. But if people want to talk about that, great, go for it. I'm not judging. I don't want to relive that though, personally.
No, and I also think there's it's about making that previous experience relevant to yourself, because if you have had a difficult birth and you decide actually I want to qualify as a hypnobirthing instructor, for example, or it's empowered me that I want to become a midwife, that is really relevant to your audience, because it's why would I choose that hypnobirthing person over someone else? And it's like, well, actually, because they've got that story, they understand how I'm feeling, they understand what my fears might be. So that's something actually that can help you stand out by creating that emotional connection with your clients.
Definitely if it's relevant, but I also should just really caveat that with, even if it's completely irrelevant to your job, but it's something you'd like to share, then I'm not shaming anyone.
No. Yeah.
Just wanted to make that really clear, because for me, I don't want to necessarily talk about that, but I know other people find like that works for them and they want to share, or they want to share health stuff. And they get strength from sharing it and raising awareness and that kind of thing. So I would never, what's the term? Yuck anyone's yum.
No. And I think,
but if it is relevant, then definitely use it. If you're
if it is relevant, and also if it doesn't seem relevant, because I mean, but you and
insight, isn't it?
Yeah, it's insight, and it's helping someone think, oh, actually, that person, maybe it creates that emotional connection because maybe it's a shared experience, or there's something they're concerned about. But I think on the kind of on the kind of more professional sort of storytelling and weaving what you used to do into what you do now, I think that's something that I feel definitely gets overlooked, particularly if people have had quite a difficult end to the previous role that I was in, for reasons which I'm not going to go into now. But I actually felt that I didn't want to talk about that for a long time, because it was
too raw.
Well, I think because maybe I felt people were watching, or I didn't feel that it was important, or it was just a place that I didn't want to go to. And I do speak to people who've had this kind of similar experience, and I think it's one of the exercises that I do with people is quite often like, what's your unique? So how do we kind of unpick that? And actually, so what are the 5 kind of highlights or learnings from your career, and how do you take that and apply that to what you do now? And then, how do you break that down into kind of little stories that you feel comfortable sharing? And that it might be ex-teachers are a really good example, because I know there's a lot of them.
So many ex-teachers.
But actually, yes, a friend of mine, actually, she retrained as a solutions focused hypnotherapist, and she's an head of early years. So of course what she brings to the table is the fact that she is really good at training and teaching, and she trains adults. She's a lot of empathy and understanding, and and she's my friend. I think she's great, and she's a really good listener. But it's actually interweaving the fact that you used to be a teacher. That's extremely valuable to a lot
and
of
very, very relatable to people now post lockdown, even people that have never been teachers themselves, who've had to have that taste of lockdown home education. And is this a good time to mention that I have my early years teacher status as well?
No, I didn't know that.
I'm just obsessed with getting the highest qualification I can in whatever I'm doing. So when we moved here to Northamptonshire 10 years ago now. Oh, in 5 days it'll be 10 years.
Oh, happy
the longest
year and
thanks happy Northants anniversary. And we moved because I was pregnant with our eldest daughter, and we moved from Ipswich, so I wasn't about to go back every day or down along the A14 for an hour and a half each way. So at the beginning of things, we were like, well, let's see how we can get on one salary. But then a friend of mine who I met at baby group was going back to work sooner than expected, needed someone to look after her son, was fretting about this. And I was like, well, maybe I'll just become a childminder for a bit. And so I did.
You're not the only person I know who's done this.
No,
very long.
Never again. Never again. It's too isolated. Don't like it. Didn't like it. You can't even go for a poo without having the door open in case one of the children. It's just horrible. Never again. Am I working with tiny people? Not horrible. Like, it was fine at the time, but it's not for me. It served its purpose. But because I was a registered childminder, I was able to do a top up to become an early years teacher, funded with a bursary. So I was like, well, I'll do that then, obviously, because having a 1-year-old and 2 other 1-year-olds in my house at all times, it's fine. So yeah, I'm actually a qualified early years teacher.
Well, there you go.
But that's not as relevant to being a copywriter. Just a fun fact. Not. Do you know what though?
This is such an interesting, and I think actually what I would say to people who are watching, if you're really struggling to think about what the bloody hell is my career story that I can share, is actually just talk to someone about it. Because even by writing the copy for this and I had to think about what I used to do in my career, and suddenly I was like, oh my god, I've got loads of stories. I'm doing this and this, and then as you were talking, I suddenly went, oh yeah, and you cannot tell by my house. I've got a diploma in interior design. I forgot about that.
Well, you know, Jodie, our friend Jodie Newman, used to like make furniture and stuff. Like,
did she?
Read her website. I've read your website, Jodie, if you're listening.
There you go.
But yesterday, when I was doing my talk, I've got a slide that's all my different jobs I've had. And I was like, I realised this makes me look really flaky. But actually, there was overlap with some of them. And you kind of take what you're interested in from one job. And then that... so I talked, just to go back a bit, I talked last night about happenstance and planned happenstance, which is where you try and set yourself up to make the most out of opportunities and recognize opportunities. So it might be that a role or a project isn't quite a perfect fit, but it's what's available now. You take it, you learn from it, and you create opportunities as well by stuff like this, putting it out there that you want to do some speaking gigs this year. So I did that about a year ago, and someone in my network got invited to speak at an event, didn't want to. So she emailed me and said, do you want me to refer you? I'm like, yes, please. And that's then led to me having other speaking gigs. And it's something I used to do in my previous role, because I used to train people to be careers advisors as well, in that, like, getting as high a qualification as I can. Started doing my master's in career guidance, ditched that because I had a baby. But I've done that standing in front of people and talking before.
Yeah.
But then you change careers and you kind of think, oh, I can't stand up and talk to people about this. I haven't been doing it that long. But I think we're very quick to discount our previous, like you said earlier, we're very quick to go, oh, well, you know, that was a different thing, that was a different life. But there's so much to draw out of those moments where you've done things, you know, that are now relevant to your new current life, or what the life that you want as well, you know, and maximize what you've done in the past to prove you can do stuff in the future, and then people will take a chance on you.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely key. And I think also it's just one of those things of, like, you know, as I've just said, speaking to people about what that previous experience is can really help you to sort of tease out ideas that you might want to talk about. I think just almost like having, like, going back through your CV, or thinking about career highlights, or actually, and one of the things that can be quite powerful is, and I hate doing this, and I tell everybody to do that. You know,
I always say, do as I say, not as I do. Okay, I know that this is a good idea, but
if you know, go back to it. It could be previous clients that you've worked with in the role that you're in now, or it could be people that you worked with in a previous life, and actually go back to them and say, what are the three things that you got from working with? What are the things you got from working with me, or what do you remember about working with me? Because it will probably be very different from what you think. I think is a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, we've only got a couple of minutes, but I had a call with an old client of mine who was retraining to be a coach, and we've known each other for 20 years. And she said to me, I said I'd be one of her coaching guinea pigs. She decided not to be a coach, but we got on the call, and this was like way back when I first started freelancing, and I was dithering. I still do dither a bit now. And she said to me, I've worked with you and I know you personally. She said, you can be anything you want to be, but you need to decide what that is. And that's probably one of the most powerful things that anybody's ever said to me. And that was getting a view from somebody who knew me in a previous life, and in a previous role. So I think that having those kind of conversations can be really powerful. So we've got a couple of comments. So Robin is saying, I think she's referring to personal branding, about it being a bit cringy and gross. Don't like the terminology, don't call it that. But remember, when you are talking about yourself, or, you know, how is that sharing, helping people? And it might just be the fact that it's empowering them to share as well.
Leanne's commented. Leanne is someone I did training with, and she's an absolute legend in career guidance circles. So hi, Leanne. I love you. I miss you. Sorry, just fangirling over Leanne there.
Well, I don't think we're connected. So I'm going to look her up and see what the fangirling is all about. And I think Rob has just said, he's like,
crisis of confidence. No, Rob. Oh, I'm going to look at that link you've given us.
I think, it's common. Oh, but as someone said to me, often those posts you agonize over the most are the ones that do the best. The ones
almost always.
Like, oh God, really cringy.
And my untrademarked, but unpatented, but my little saying is brain to fingers. Brain to fingers always seems to do best for me, in terms of reach anyway. And it's those moments that are an insight into everyday life, as I say. But just going back to what we were saying about moments in your career, one of the big trends, for want of a better word, is nostalgia in marketing at the moment. Is massive. And if you've seen, there's a Yakult advert this morning that I saw on LinkedIn that was tapping into. There's this old video with this guy go, yeah. I don't know what the song's called. Anyway, it was tapping into this really old YouTube video, and people love a bit of nostalgia. So bringing that in as well, talking about how you felt when you opened your GCSE results and they weren't what you wanted, or those moments of like, oh, remember in 1998 when this happened, tapping into that and then saying, kind of relating it back to now. If, you know, that kid leaving sixth form who didn't know what they wanted to do, still doesn't quite know what they want to do, but they found, you know, making it really relevant to your current situation, to show the journey that you've taken, which is a bit storytelling-y. I said earlier about having like the hero story. People might not think of it as a hero story, but talking about how you've gone from A to B is all it is. And everyone's gone from A to B. So
sorry, LinkedIn actually does cut you off.
He's going to cut us off in 13 seconds.
But I'm just cracking up at Leanne's comment about having a poo with the door open as a child.
Sorry. They were only one. It's fine.
So on that note, because we are actually going to get cut off, but thank you everybody for watching. Thank you, Mel, for joining me. Any questions or any comments, just reach out to either of us or just pop them in the comments and we will reply.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.